Our movie begins in the land of Sparta, where an old man can be seen examining babies for defects. The first one he inspects is an ogre, which he rejects after that baby insults him. The second one's a Vietnamese boy who's later adopted by Brangelina. The third baby, of course, is Leonidas, born with a six-pack and beard, and is found to be perfect, as he's selected by the Spartan elder. Leonidas is then trained at a very young age so he can be the next king of the Spartans. After years of training, his final test is to be sent into the wild to take out a terrifying beast. While trying to fight cold and hunger, Leonidas gets into a fight with this beast, which turns out to be a talking red-eyed penguin. After some insults and attacks from the penguin, Leonidas successfully annihilates it. After the deadly encounter, Leonidas returns to his community where he's greeted as the new king. During the celebrations, he meets a girl named Margot and proposes for marriage, which she accepts and gives him the combination of her armor-plated chastity belt. They then spend a content life together and have a son whom Leonidas considers his successor. One day, as Leonidas is busy training his son, a man called the Captain arrives and informs Margot about the arrival of a Persian messenger. After Leonidas welcomes him to the kingdom, they both begin a walk, while the messenger relays to him a message from the Persian king named Xerxes, who's on a mission to conquer the world. According to him, King Xerxes is now planning an attack on Sparta. Leonidas gets offended by the king's intentions, but the messenger implies that Xerxes is a kind of king who offers peaceful alternatives to the wars. He tells Leonidas that as long as the Spartan men help build the king's pyramids and their children work in sweatshops making Nike shoes, no war will come to their home. Although Leonidas' councilman Traitoro recommends accepting the offer, Leonidas declines to abandon his people and kicks the messenger into the pit. Traitoro now suggests sparing his companions so they can return to the king with a message, but Leonidas ignores his councilman's advice and eliminates them as well. And then he continues to kick people into the pit, including Britney Spears and American Idol judges. As Leonidas gets rid of the people he dislikes, the captain advises him to consult the prophets about the upcoming war. Acting upon his suggestion, Leonidas greets the prophets and offers skincare products as a price for their consultancy. He then briefs them about his strategic plan to attack King Xerxes, which they disapprove of and mock his thinking process. Leonidas is offended by their reactions but decides to listen to them, as no Spartan can go to war without consultation. Eventually, the prophets agree to help him and suggest he should consult the oracle. They introduce her as the most beautiful girl among the Spartans, but Leonidas recognizes her as Ugly Betty. She warns Leonidas not to start a war with the Persians, as she predicts his death on the battleground. So after meeting with the prophets and the oracle, Leonidas returns to his wife Margot, sharing his concerns about the upcoming war which he is determined to fight. After learning about the oracle's prediction, Margot comforts him and assures him that it doesn't matter what the oracle says, she'll always be with him. After their talk, Leonidas goes to bench press his wife and throws her away. The next morning, as Leonidas gears up for war, he asks his captain if he's assembled his army of brave Spartan soldiers. Leonidas expected his army to be comprised of 300 soldiers, but he only finds 10 men in the formation. When Leonidas sees this, he questions the captain about it. The captain then tells him that only a few men could meet the requirements which he had set up, being handsome, well-built, and well-endowed. As they discuss this plan, a fat soldier named Delio assures Leonidas of his loyalty and pledges to fight for him to infinity and beyond. Seeing their commitment, Leonidas finally accepts that these 10 men are enough for the war against the Persians. Now, as the Spartan men get ready for this war, the captain's son Sonio arrives. Leonidas thinks he should be a part of the army, but the captain disagrees by implying that Sonio's not a fighter. According to him, the young Sonio's destined to carry his name, so the captain doesn't want him to go to the battlefield. Although the captain is against this, Leonidas is convinced of Sonio's abilities and eventually convinces his father to send him to the war with him by using a panel of judges from America's Next Top Model. After preparations, Leonidas sees off his family and advises his son to be tough like a brave man and knocks him out. He then goes to Margot and she urges him to come back with his shield or on it. Leonidas tells her to move on if he doesn't return from the war. Margot gives her necklace to him as a reminder and they give each other a high-five goodbye. After this emotional meeting, Leonidas joins the captain as they prepare to depart. Traitoro once again opposes the idea of war, so as the Spartan army proceeds to the battleground, Traitoro stabs him in the back by informing King Xerxes about their movement to the south via text message. The Spartan men then hold hands and start their journey. After traveling for days, Leonidas and his men eventually arrive at the Hot Gate, where they plan to rest for a while before continuing their journey again. While Leonidas and the captain plan their next move, a woman appears, who's soon to be revealed as Paris Hilton, but she has a hump on her back. Upon Leonidas' question about her intentions, she claims to know a secret passage that they can use to defeat the Persians. However, she demands to be included in the Spartan army in exchange for this information. Leonidas thinks about her offer for a while, but ultimately rejects her as she fails to correctly use her weapon and accidentally gets hit by it. She tells Leonidas he will regret it and leaves. Soon the Persians arrive and both armies face each other. The Persians offer the Spartans to surrender to King Xerxes, but Leonidas declines the proposal. As they face a deadlock, Dilio attempts an attack on the Persians, but ends up failing and injuring himself. Seeing this, both armies prepare to fight, but not with their swords, but rather a dance-off. Thanks to their amazing moves and special tricks, the Spartans get the upper hand and win. Charged up by the results, Leonidas encourages his army to dance the Persians off the cliff. After winning the first encounter, the Spartans celebrate their victory and drink the night away. Meanwhile, in the city, the counselor meets Queen Margot. He briefs her that they need to convince the rest of the council to send more troops to help her husband in the war. The counselor further tells the queen that they only need one more vote to achieve this, and the last vote belongs to Traitoro. Margot hesitates at the beginning, but the counselor tells her that she might not be a queen anymore if Leonidas loses the battle. The counselor also adds that her Mercedes, Nintendo Wii, and her gardener will also be taken away if they lose this war. Well, the queen changes her mind and decides to help. On the other side of things, King Xerxes rides his golden chair and approaches the Spartans on the battlefield. Leonidas thinks that the king is here for a fight, but he offers a settlement deal instead. And then out of nowhere, the set of the game show Deal or No Deal appears. Leonidas then gets a call from the banker who tells him that he and his men can enjoy a 2-day getaway in Las Vegas if they were to bow down now and surrender to King Xerxes. Excited by this offer, Leonidas starts hesitating and gets overwhelmed with the conflicting decisions by his men, but he decides to not take the offer and disappoints all of his soldiers. Enraged, King Xerxes summons his most vicious warriors, who challenge the Spartans in a rap battle. Both armies use their best rappers, giving each other a hard time, but unfortunately, Dilio loses his eyesight as that Persian rapper punches him in the face. However, the Spartans manage to turn the table and win. King Xerxes helplessly watches his army get defeated yet again and comes up with his next plan of attack. Now back in Sparta, Traitoro comes to see the queen for a meeting. Queen Margot explains the situation and seeks his approval in sending more troops to the battlefield. However, Traitoro gets distracted by her regions and doesn't hear a word she says. Margot then tries seducing Traitoro to get what she wants, and he agrees to help her. Back to the war, Paris Hilton approaches King Xerxes, offering to tell him about the secret passage which they can use to defeat the Spartans. In return, the king agrees to erase her past records. He also gives her a Chanel bag and removes her hump with his golden knife for that information. Now the next day, the captain's son Sonio breaks the news that Paris Hilton has told the king about that secret passage through the Hot Gate. Realizing they might get into a severe battle, Leonidas decides to send an injured Dilio back to Sparta and asks him to tell everyone about what has happened. He also passes him the necklace Margot gave him and asks Dilio to give it back to her. Soon, the Persian army, led by King Xerxes himself, finds their location. Xerxes once again offers Leonidas to bow down and accept his supremacy, but he declines. Furious, King Xerxes teases Leonidas that he only has 13 people by his side, while the king has a large army ready to fight for him. He uses a giant blue screen to manipulate Leonidas into thinking that the king has a large number of troops. This scares the Spartans and they engage in battle. While both armies face each other, Queen Margot goes to the councilman and informs him that their king needs needs their help, and Sparta will fall if they don't agree to send the rest of their army. However, Traitoro goes back on his word and starts opposing her. He tells the councilmen that the only hope for their survival is to surrender to Xerxes and beg for his forgiveness. Angered by his deceit, Queen Margot turns into a black spider woman and starts fighting with him. At first, Traitoro, who's made of sand, appears to be winning, but she uses a dustbuster to collect all that sand, eliminating him. As she emerges victorious, the rest of the council finds Traitoro's phone, which confirms that he had secretly joined King Xerxes and reversed his loyalty. Realizing he was a traitor, the councilmen agree to send more troops to help Leonidas in the battle. Back to the battlefield, both armies are fighting viciously, but the Spartans manage to assassinate most of that Persian army. But just as they're on that winning streak, King Xerxes brings in Ghost Rider. However, they do find a fire extinguisher and easily take him out. The Persian army then introduces another formidable opponent, Rocky Balboa. Sonio decides to fight against him, but gets eliminated instantly. Seeing his son's passing, the captain goes to take revenge and attacks Rocky by injecting him with a Botox overdose. Witnessing Rocky's defeat, King Xerxes uses his weapon to strike the captain and get rid of him. After watching his best friend pass, Leonidas seeks revenge for his friend, lashing out on the Persian army using a Grand Theft Auto strategy. Xerxes tries to escape, but he accidentally finds a cube and realizes it's the cube from Transformers. Xerxes quickly uses the cube on his ride and gets himself transformed into a robot. As he goes to attack the Spartan men, Xerxes accidentally stumbles upon his extension cord and crashes into the Spartans, eliminating the entire army. At this very moment, Dilio finally reaches Sparta and he passes the queen's necklace to her and tells everyone of the soldiers passing. 1 year later, Dilio can be seen leading his own army into battle. Unable to see a thing, he misleads them, and they end up in Malibu where they encounter Lindsay Lohan, and they attack her. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this recap, please be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any new content.